All right, back into it in Minneapolis. I brought in AWR Hawkins, who is a one-man encyclopedia on all things Second Amendment and guns. He's been busier than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest over the weekend, and there's a lot of detail I want to get into with him. But Doc, here is the first question. You are someone who publicly has stated you don't want any gun controls at all, and I'm with you on this. But let's say you have all of your arsenal with you. Would you ever take a gun and extra magazines to a protest that is also a operation where ICE is trying to deport illegally alien criminals, and they've already accidentally killed someone a week before? Would you ever show up armed to something like that?
No, I wouldn't. No. And there's a lot that goes into that answer. Number one, common sense. I don't want, as you say, I don't want the government telling me not to carry, but I wouldn't carry because, someone in that crowd, that everybody's going to be pushing against everybody. That means they're going to be pushing against your gun all day. They're going to know it's there. So you run the obvious risk of someone just grabbing your gun from behind. You run other risks of being in a fight, and in a fight, you can lose control of your firearm. You run the risk of a police officer patting you down, feeling the gun. He's threatened maybe by the person next to you, or something's misunderstood. And a very simple situation gets very complex quickly. Just for me personally, no way would I carry a gun in the setting that I see in Minneapolis. Now, I wouldn't even go there. I need to say that too. But if I did go for some weird reason, I would not carry a firearm.
It's interesting because I want you to contrast this with some of the other protests that we've seen where violence has broken out. The obvious comp is the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. It feels like for me the big difference is that Rittenhouse showed up because there was no law enforcement, and this time this was specifically because law enforcement was there and they were trying to obstruct. But from the details that you've been diving into this weekend, what is there to know?
No, I agree with you 100%. The deal Kyle was in was completely different. And he was there because there was no one else there to keep order. And he was there, as you know, protecting some businesses and other things. Now, I'm all for that. You probably could catch me with a shotgun and a pistol on my hip in that setting. But it's a different setting. When you have law enforcement in the mix and you're in a climate that Governor Walz and Mayor Frey have spun out of control. They have set these people on edge. The protesters are in a frenzy. Law enforcement is hypersensitive. Rightly so. They're having bottles full of frozen water thrown at them. They're being spit on. They have whistles being blown in their ears. On and on I could go. It's not a good place to walk in carrying a gun, particularly if you're going to walk right at police officers or federal law enforcement officers. It just doesn't make sense. Completely different animal than what Kyle was in. Completely different.
Yeah, and you touched on something that I wanted to get to, which is that there's a major political party in this country that's amping up the tension. I started the show playing a clip of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying that this was an execution. Tim Wall saying this has nothing to do with Somali fraud, literally nothing to do with it. He even offered Pam Bondi a pro tip with Sean noted was like he was teaching her how to build a cabinet or something, or try to hang some doors in a DIY home improvement environment. No, this is a law enforcement operation to crack down Somali fraud. They're lying about that. They wouldn't even tell us that's what's going on. You have Hillary Clinton now, you have Barack Obama now, all speaking up on behalf of the protesters. This just encourages them to go out and mix it up with law enforcement.
I agree with you 100%. And if I can say so, as we've covered at Breitbart, you have the Attorney General, who is a Democrat in Arizona, doing the same thing.
Yes.
If we covered at Breitbart, it went nuclear. Alex, she basically described the Stand Your Ground law in Arizona, which is one of the best in the country, and by the best I mean one of the most expansive. And basically saying that, ICE is going to have a big problem because they're going to roll in here. They're not in uniform, blah, 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 blah. And that if you go to someone's home and someone feels threatened and they don't know you're an officer, they might use lethal force against you. Just literally floating the idea just in that way. Representative Andy Biggs spoke with us exclusively yesterday and said it's almost like she's fantasizing about ICE agents being shot. And he and others have called and said, look, her time in office needs to be over. She's not qualified anymore. But it does what you're saying, Alex. It is the Democrat Party almost setting the table for this violence now to go to the next level. And they're making a spectacle out of it, and people are going to get hurt. And I fear that law enforcement officers are in danger, Alex. I really do.
They absolutely are. And I think this is an important point, because that's what is creating the tension, is that these protesters are showing up. They like that they're being martyred. I'm not saying every one of them wants to die, but clearly this guy was prepared to. Doc, what did you make of the fact that he had so much ammunition? Because I feel like if he was going to defend himself, how many defensive rounds are you firing if you're in a situation where you're not the instigator, someone comes at you and you're defending yourself? He brought multiple magazines with him. That to me is very suspicious.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I go off what the DHS said, Alex, and they said that the person looked determined, that he came with a determination to massacre law enforcement. Now, that's what they said. That they use the word massacre. I'm not using my words, and I just go with their words for this reason. Number one, they've had eyes on it in a better way than I have, and number two, I somewhat agree with you when you're bringing that much ammo. It often appears to me that that's for an offensive action, not a defensive action. Now, when I road trip, let me be clear. When I road trip, if I road trip and I've got firearms with me, I'll always carry an extra magazine in that setting with my family with me, because if I come up against somebody who is well armed and they have multiple magazines for an offensive action, I want to be able to cover myself defensively, but not in the setting this guy was in.
That's right.
So I agree with what you're saying. It's suspicious from the get-go, and it's always suspicious to me when officers are trying to take your gun to get you in a position to question you. When you violently resist, and I believe those were the two words that DHS used, violently resist, that also sends a signal. What is there to resist if you don't have bad intention? What is there to resist? I've never understood that.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, so a couple other things that you reported on I think are really crucial. A federal agent's finger was bitten off by an alleged Minneapolis rioter, and the Trump administration put out the images, and they're obviously horrifying. What's this story?
That's it. They bit, and I can only imagine he must have been pushing him back, and they snapped his finger with their teeth, bit it off. But now,
I'm visibly cringing here. It's like I'm physically uncomfortable hearing about this story.
But everybody who is mad over this shooting Saturday should be absolutely shocked that there wasn't a shooting here. I can't imagine having someone run at me, snarling their lips and making obvious that they're trying to bite me. I can't imagine responding. Now, I'm going to first try to run away. But if they've got me and there's a wall behind me or something and I can't get away, there's going to be a muzzle flash, because I am not going to be assaulted and chewed on by somebody. And I think people need to give this agent credit, because this agent showed some great resolve, was able to really keep himself under control. I don't know how he didn't shoot this individual. That's just my opinion, but I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. And I think it's really important to note that when there are provocative actions and when there are defensive actions, and even though this one from the video is very murky, you look at the broader context and then you see the messaging that's being put out, and you see a real effort to try to, I think, provoke. And I think that's something that we really need to understand is it's something that is essential context if we're trying to de-escalate. And I think a lot of the businesses in the area, they want to de-escalate, but that's not the way this is being approached within the media. And I feel like all of it leads to an invasion, really, Dr. Hawkins, because it is trying to protect people who are illegal aliens and illegal aliens who are here committing crimes. Isn't that what this is all about?
I agree with you. And, and I was on a different radio program this morning, and I pointed out, as you know, Alex, there are ICE operations happening all over the country, but Minneapolis is the one that the cameras are focused on. And why is Minneapolis so different? It's different for the reasons you're talking about. It's different because the leadership there, they're not cooperating with ICE. They're fighting the ICE operations to remove illegal and criminal illegal. And in other cities, some of which are Democrat controlled, like Memphis, where the police cooperated with ICE, what did we see there, Alex? We didn't see this. And so I think this is where the left has dug in. This is where they want to make their spectacle. This is where they want to try to break the back of ICE and the ICE operations, and I hope the Trump administration won't give in. I really do.
AWR Hawkins is our gun expert at Breitbart News. He's got a story just up. In 2024, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison argued no right to carry a gun at political rallies and protests. They said you should not even be allowed to carry a gun in this instance. Go over to Breitbart.com, read that story.